performance has to go to Texas State, the Bobcats, who are at home against Nicholls State in what was formerly called the Battle for the Paddle. Unfortunately, this rivalry in this series is kind of going away just because that Nicholls State is a little sore at Texas State for moving on to the Football Bowl subdivision next year. The fact that Texas State's going to the Western Athletic Conference, Nicholls State doesn't like that, so they don't really want to continue the Battle for the Paddle anymore. Whatever happens, though, Texas State ended up winning this year's match. They won the ball game 38-12 on the heels of a very, very strong offensive performance from both their quarterback Sean Rutherford and their halfbacks Terrence Franks and Tim Hawkins. All three of those guys played very well. Rutherford, the quarterback, threw for 109 yards and threw 3 touchdowns in the ball game. And then you had Terrence Franks, who ran for 105 yards and scored a touchdown. Very good performance from a Texas State team, of which a lot of people might remember were outscored 95-20 in their first 2 ball games against Wyoming and Texas Tech, or beg your pardon, Texas Tech and Wyoming respectively. So this Texas State team has rebounded nicely. They're 3-2. This is a team whose defense is getting better. This defense for Texas State held Nicholls State to only 11 yards passing in the first half of play. Only 11 yards passing. They kept this Nicholls State offense in check. They only allowed 82 yards in rushing offense, so that they did a good job in that first half in containing this Nicholls State team. And I know a lot of people might say, well, Nicholls State's 0-4 or 1-4. They're not a very good team. This is a team that really isn't showcasing a whole lot. And you know, for a lot of people, yes, you're right. Nicholls State is 1-4. They're not very good this year. But give Texas State some semblance of credit. This is a Texas State team of which, starting the year, I think a lot of people did not expect them to do as well as they have so far. I think a lot of folks expected another bad season from them after that very tough start against Texas Tech and then Wyoming. Give Dennis Francione a lot of credit, and give the quarterback Sean Rutherford credit. He's a very adept leader and allows his Texas State team to blossom into what blossom into this point that they've gotten themselves into right now. For the Bobcats now, this next week will be a very big game again. They're going to be playing at McNeese State on the road this Saturday. And keeping in mind, for Texas State, the Bobcats don't have a conference schedule this year. I think a lot of people might forget. They're not in the Southland Conference anymore. This year, they're an independent in the FCS, or formerly Division I AA. They're an independent school, so whatever the wins they may accrue, they have to have at least enough wins to make it into the playoffs. There's no conference affiliation, so it doesn't matter how well they play. If they don't get enough wins, probably around the 7 to 8 win mark this season, I'm not quite sure Texas State will make the playoffs in the FCS. Of course, I think a lot of people making the playoffs might not be the biggest concern. It's just seeing some progression, getting to that FBS team mentality. And I think Texas State has certainly done that, and they're getting better. And I think we'll see Texas State get better as the weeks go on, and potentially see this team make some waves next year in the WAC should they continue to progress under Francione. So that was the best performance this last week.
That dubious honor goes to Texas A&M for the second straight week. Texas A&M once again had a lead going into halftime. Texas A&M was leading 35-17 against Arkansas this last Saturday in Dallas Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. They were leading 35-17 at halftime, but were outscored 25-3 in the second half, and once again, Texas A&M chokes on a big stage. Just like last week against Oklahoma State at home, they lose 42-38 to Arkansas. At Arkansas Razorbacks, they just kept up with Texas A&M, and in that second half, slowly the Razorbacks crawled back into it, and Texas A&M's offense once again was non-existent in the second half. They didn't do anything in that second half. Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback for the Aggies, threw for 247 yards, but he threw for 0 touchdowns. That does not help this Texas A&M squad, of which a lot of people touted going into the season as having a much more prolific pass game. That was not showcased against Arkansas, especially in that second half when the Razorbacks were able to melt away that Aggie lead. For the Razorbacks, their offense was very good. They accrued 510 offensive yards. They had most of that going through the air. 510 passing yards, beg your pardon. It was 510 passing yards. I got that backwards. 510 passing yards. They gained 581 total yards, but 510 of the 581 were passing. Texas A&M's defense, once again, just choked amid the pressure that was given to them. And one of the biggest questions I had going into the season was whether or not Texas A&M could live up to the hype and the pressure that was placed in front of them. A lot of people expect Texas A&M to not only vie for a Big 12 championship, but potentially a national championship. And what they showed against Arkansas was anything but. They looked bad in the second half. For the second straight week, just like in the Oklahoma State game, the offense didn't do very much in the second half, and the defense was just on the field too much. The only good thing for Texas A&M was the fact that they didn't turn the ball over as much compared to last week, where Tannehill had 3 interceptions in the second half, 2 in the third quarter. This week A&M kept the possession fairly well, but they turned the ball over twice in the ball game. That still is a bad number for them. They really struggled down the stretch, and once again, Texas A&M, for a lot of fans out there, their fan base is just seeing red. For lack of a better term, this is a fan base that is not happy. They have to see better results, and they're not getting it from what they've seen so far. So once again, Texas A&M, I guess if you want to say, they earned the worst performance this last week in the state of Texas via a very tough 42-38 loss to Arkansas. So, after all of this, once again, we'll end this podcast with the TX Sportscast Top 5. So, here is the TX Sportscast Top 5.